Welcome to my dad's car. Enjoy!
Welcome to My Dad's Car, a podcast discussing our personal relationship with automotive nostalgia. And you know what? It doesn't even have to be about your dad's car. It can be your mum's, your grand's, your parents', guardians, or even a neighbour's. If it made an impression, let's talk about it. Welcome along, Ben. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me.
And yeah, good evening to you, John.
Good evening. It's been good to get Ben on because he's a friend of mine and I've told him about the podcast. One of the few people that I've told, actually, because I've sort of kept it under my hat a little bit for whatever reasons. But no, you seem to be enjoying it, Ben. Is that right? So you're quite happy to come on?
I've really enjoyed it. Yeah, I listened to the first 3 or 4 the other day when I was driving to work. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. And I started to share it around, which you may have seen on my Instagram. So yeah, hopefully start getting a few more listeners, subscribers.
Yeah, thank you very much for all the support. I guess as we ask everyone, really, what's your earliest car memory?
So I've been thinking about this, and I told my dad about this, as he knows Jon as well. And my first memory is driving down to France in a Ford Escort estate.
Okay.
So I spoke to my dad. I said, "Do you remember that Ford Escort we drove to France in?" And he texts me a full breakdown of the car. So I've got the registration. I've got, it's a 1.8 VTEC Ford Escort estate. He went to town with it, really, to tell me all about it. But I remember we drove down to France and my dad has always been in telecoms and he had a CB radio. And we went down with my grandparents as well. And they went down in a Mitsubishi Shogun. And we had 5 of us crammed into this Escort, a two-day drive down to Saint-Tropez on a CB radio, chatting to my nan and granddad all the way down. That was so that's probably my first memory. And I always remember, back then we'd never had CDs or anything. So this would have been in the early 90s.
Yeah.
That we went to the this will make you laugh, John, actually, I reckon. We went to the library to rent some cassettes so we could listen to some music on the way down. I reckon we must have listened to Phil Collins' Full Metal Jacket about 1,000 times on the way down.
I was going to say, before you started talking about music and Phil, I had in my head today what Phil would be into in the car. Right. And also I had in my head that you'd definitely be a Ford man. So I'm quite happy that one's already ticked off.
Couple of predictions. Yeah. You're like a magician. You've got to have an envelope at the end of this show.
Well, yeah.
Just present it like Darren Brown.
There's a roll open now. Mystic Meg's disappeared.
God bless her.
Yeah, God rest her soul. Phil, yeah, his music, I was thinking it's got to be the likes of sort of Status Quo, Stones. But Phil Collins, I mean, that I'm happy with that. That's good to hear.
Well, my dad he's not really into music an awful lot. Weirdly enough, we listened to Full Metal Jacket the whole way down there and Les Miserables the whole way down. That's and as a family, I mean, perhaps shouldn't say this. People will start ribbing me when they see me now. But Les Miserables is like my guilty pleasure because of that trip down to Saint-Tropez.
Yeah, that's what happens, isn't it? That's the thing with music in the car. You can't get out of that, and there's no way of escaping that, whatever's on. So it kind of just gets injected, doesn't it?
It certainly does.
Yeah, I've got a few like that myself, I think. So did your mum, did she get involved at all with the music, or was it purely down to Phil? I'd imagine he was quite sort of strong with the music.
Yeah. It was pretty much down to, I think, us and my dad, me and Joe and my brother Joe and my dad. And I think that was it, really. Mum just was quite happy that we were not punching each other in the back seat.
And how old will you be at this point, Ben?
I think I was 5 or 6. So Joe would have been 3, and my sister Amy would have been 1. So yeah, that would have been 1990, I reckon it was. No, maybe 91.
Was your dad the driver, or did your mum take the wheel as well?
Dad was a driver, and I think, from what I can remember, talking to my nan and my granddad, that it was a race out of the ferry down to France. But my dad, thinking he didn't need to wait for anyone, so off we steamed ahead. We got lost, ended up having to stay overnight in a hotel. And then when we got to Saint-Tropez, my nan and granddad were already there. Because my granddad just stubbornly drove through the night to get there to beat him.
What happened to the CV radios at this point?
I don't know. There's a lot of, breaker 1-9 going on,
Your dad went offline.
Yeah, I don't know.
It always reminds me, those CV radios, they always remind me, did you ever see the film Smokey and the Bandit?
Yeah.
What's the guy's name with the tash?
Burt Reynolds.
That's the one, yeah. It's a classic, yeah. I think that's why those CV radios, they took off, didn't they, at that sort of period? A lot of... Yeah,
we
a bit of a specialist item, yeah.
Dad must have used this for work, because it was always in the car, and we were always like, let's because you think you could phone people up, but obviously you had to go on to the frequencies or something and find out who was online. But yeah, it kept us quiet. Well, from what I remember, all the way down. It's a long drive, it's a long way down.
Yeah, especially in an Escort estate.
Yeah, exactly.
Any breakdowns? What was that car like? Was it reliable, or can you not really remember?
I think it was pretty good, I can't remember too much. I don't remember breaking down. I do remember, like I say, we got lost and then we were having to find somewhere to stay, and my mum not being that happy with my dad. And I think my dad trying to blame her that her map reading skills weren't that good. You can imagine it.
Any French linguistic skills between the two of them for kind of booking a place?
No, I reckon 0 French. A lot of pointing and a bit of slow talking,
A bit of Franglish.
Yeah.
That's just the art of mime.
Yeah. I mean, that's a pretty bold move to go all the way down there with 3 young children.
I was going to say, it's quite a different scenario compared to now, isn't it? Like going abroad in a car. Obviously, if you get lost, that's a big problem. And then a bigger problem is to find somewhere to stay, with no means to do so other than just rolling up to places and hoping there's room in the stable.
Yeah, that's what we done. Turned up.
I remember when I was younger, we were lucky enough to go to the States and do the Disney thing. But I remember sort of leading up to us going, and it was obviously a massive thing going out to the States back then. When you're young, or still is now when you're a kid, Disney's like this magical place, isn't it? So, but I remember leading up to it, my dad was like going to Smith's and buying like little maps of California and stuff, and like I was thinking he's getting really into this. But obviously once you get there, that's it. You just got to rely on, he must have looked up the route to the hotel and obviously done his research and stuff. And then once you're there, you're there. And yeah, I remember it was some sweaty times, I think, having to sort of navigate around LA and places, and hearing your dad sort of swear sort of quite frequently for the first time.
Yeah, you think there was no mobile phones, there was no sat nav, and we did the same job when we were I was about 10, so 95. My nan and granddad again, they'd sold a business and had a bit of money, and they took us away to California, and we drove around there actually. And yeah, I think we were getting lost like every day. We were somewhere.
Yeah, we were.
Somewhere we shouldn't have been.
I always distinctly remember that when you're getting in the car, it's like you're getting in the car for a long time now. So just buckle up and prepare yourself. And I was quite bad with travel sickness as well, actually, when I was a kid. But luckily, all the roads are just straight out there anyway, aren't they? So
no roundabouts.
No.
So you went to France in the Escort. What did they get after the Escort? Did they stick with the blue oval?
Citroen 2 CV, I'd imagine, after the...
I tell you what, this is my most. I remember that car just because of that trip, really. But
What colour was it, Ben?
It was blue, midnight blue. My dad informs me. But the next car.
What was the registration, just in case it's still in circulation?
You want the registration there? Kilo 267. But yeah, the next car is like the most vivid car, and I love this car. It was a Rover, 1982 Rover fastback in British Racing Green, and my dad's put quite a paragraph on this one, and it had
SD1, maybe, was it?
Sorry,
SD1, 3.5 litre V8.
That's it. Yeah, that's it.
Nice.
You know your cars.
Oh, it's the one that's sort of shaped. I'm saying this very loosely, and you're a Porsche fan, Andy, but it's kind of like a Porsche shape.
Yeah, it's got that kind of that curve. Yeah, they used to race in touring cars and stuff back in the day.
They did. Yeah. I think I had a Scale Electrics version, and
popular with the police.
Very, very much so a police car, wasn't it? With the old jam sandwich job down the side.
Well, this was, like I say, British Racing Green, and it had like leather interior. But what the most vivid thing about this is it had a car phone in the armrest. Mm-hmm. So, as kids, we were like, this is the best.
That's a big armrest.
Yeah, I know. We were like, this is the coolest car. But obviously, we had no means of phoning anyone. Like, we didn't know how it worked. So we had this car phone, but we never phoned anyone. So that was a bit of a shame. But the car was beautiful. I don't know, like, that must have been a few quid back then. But yeah. I don't know where they got the money from for that.
That's a juicy thing, wasn't it? That car, nice car though. Back in the day,
yeah, really nice. I've actually looked one up earlier before we came on, and I think that's a smart looking motor actually.
Yeah.
I think my aunt had a red one that was quite keen on stopping in the garage quite a lot. I think a lot of problems with that from memory, but like you say, it was a cool car, nice to look at.
Yeah, it was nice. And I remember the smell, because, my mum being a smoker as well. So you had this sort of like nice leather and tobacco sort of hit as you got in.
That leads us on quite nicely to in-car sort of activities or habits, Ben. Obviously, smoking was a big one, was it, with your mum? And was your dad a smoker as well?
Yeah, Dad never really smoked. Like, he does smoke now, but never in the car as much. Mum was, back then it was a bit more accepted, wasn't it? You'd smoke anywhere.
Yeah, my parents, it was like stars in their eyes getting out of the car at the end. Not good.
No, you wouldn't even think about it now, would you?
No, it's even to the point now, if you're walking down the street and you get a waft of cigarette, it's quite sort of shocking, isn't it, these days?
Yeah. Yeah, I remember we would go to restaurants like for one of our birthdays, and if it was your birthday, you'd be opting for the non-smoking part of the restaurant, which is mad to think. Like,
I remember when we flew, going back to that trip to America, we flew and I think we sat in a smoking zone on the plane.
Wow,
that's mad.
Which, one, I mean, that's mad, and two, the health and safety from a standpoint is just
what we need in this pressurized container in the air is some fire.
Yeah, anyone got a light? Yeah, it's terrifying. But yeah, that was the way it was, wasn't it?
So the Rover stuck around for a bit. Do you know what came after that, and where did they go for their cars? Was he shopping at the dealership, or was it just kind of out the paper?
Well, I've got no idea really. Dad, after that, he got a lot of work, like company cars. So we had like a lot of Peugeots after that. John, I can see him smiling already at this. A lot of ropey Peugeots. But yeah, before that, I honestly don't know. I don't know where they would have got that from. Maybe like the Friday ads. I can't think they would have gone down. I don't remember ever going to a dealership for them to get a car. It certainly wouldn't have been a new car anyway. But I do remember when he got some company cars, they would have been quite new, and that was a bit of a thing for us, thinking that, we got a new car, but obviously it's not ours.
So chronologically, the Rover came after the Escort, was that right?
Yeah, the Rover came after the Escort, yeah.
So he went back in time, didn't he? The Rover was on a K, so what, 92, 93, and he went back to 82. So took a 10-year hit for that British luxury.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I remember when we only had one car. So Dad back then used to work for BT at some stage, and he used to have like a little motorbike that he used to ride down to where we lived at near Butlin. So there's a BT exchange there. That's where he used to work.
Oh, okay.
I can't imagine your dad on a motorbike. I really can't.
That would be amusing nowadays.
Yeah, just to sort of paint a picture. How tall is your dad?
Not
He's not that tall,
very.
is he? He's a big man though. Always sticks in my mind his handshakes. Doesn't leave much behind. Like in terms of when you go in there, you just got dust left at the end of it. It's a bit of a bone cruncher. Yeah, but that's a good point, Andy. That is a big step back in terms of gone from an Escort to a Rover.
But yes, that's a deliberate step, isn't it? That's not
Yeah.
just, the Escort's blown up, we're going to chop it in for a Sierra or an Orion or whatever it might. That's kind of, what should we go for?
Is that a crisis, or is it maybe you watched like Life on Mars or something like that, or Ashes to Ashes, and got the flavour?
A bit early for that, wasn't it?
Probably was, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what made them go for that. But I mean, it was for us. It was like a luxury car. We thought. I mean, I don't know. It was at least a 10-year-old car at that stage.
Mm.
But then to have a car phone back in the 80s, that's mad, isn't it?
Quite big on his comms, really, wasn't he? He went from the CV to the phone. What do you go to next?
Cups and strings.
Yes.
Yeah.
Get a push bike with a cup and a string on it.
So that's the one for you then, Ben, that sticks in the mind the most. You wouldn't class yourself as a petrol head, would you?
No.
I was going to ask if there's any sort of vehicles that have sort of you've thought, oh, maybe I'll try and get one of those one day. But I don't know. Is there anything in that sort of sticks in your mind?
I'm not a massive car fan. I'm on the wrong podcast completely, aren't I? To be honest, but I wouldn't class myself as a petrol head in the slightest. I can appreciate cars, but it's not my thing really.
You went to Two Wheels, didn't you, for a little bit?
Yeah, briefly.
Want to tell us about
that? Well, I think the problem was I got too carried away with Sons of Anarchy, didn't I? And I thought I could be like the new West Sussex Hells Angels or something. So then bought myself a Harley Davidson, as my first bike. So
nice little starter motorbike. Harley with L plates. That's quite the statement.
I went to the garage with my mate, and I'd gone on the back of his Harley all the way to where was it, Lewis. And when we got there, I thought, I think I like a bit of this. I've been watching Sons of Anarchy, and I got right into it. So I said to the guy, what have you got, sort of second hand? And he found me one that I liked. I thought, this is the one. So my mate's outside, and he comes back in and he goes, what are you doing? I went, I'm just going to buy it. But you haven't got a license. I went, no, I'll sort that out. Don't worry about that. And I said to the guy, done all the finance deal and that. And he said to me, so when do you want to take it home? I said, well, I suppose I better pass my test first. And he honestly nearly fell off his chair. But I passed the test. So then I got it. Yeah, it was all right. Had it for a couple of years. I sold it the day of lockdown, actually.
Oh, really?
Day of lockdown. I lost £1,000 on it in how long? How many years did I have? 3 years. So it's pretty good. Pretty good, really.
Not too bad, is it?
No.
Yeah.
Any motorcycles in your family history? Or were you the first?
Well, my dad had that little motorbike, but I mean, it wasn't, I don't think you'd class that as it was just a little, I don't even know what it was, tiny little motorbike he had. But not really. The reason I did my bike test, apart from the fact that I bought the bike, is my granddad had recently passed away, and my nan had given us some money, 500 quid each. And my granddad was quite into his bikes back in the day. So it was a bit of a tip of the hat to him, really, because I thought, if I don't do something with this 500 quid, it was going to be wasted. So that was sort of my thought behind it. He was into his cars, actually.
Was he?
Yeah, he really was into his cars, and to the point where he was a builder. and he probably had a bit of cash lying about quite a lot. And my nan would always say that he used to change the cars that much that when she went into the car park at Tesco, she would forget which car was hers because it was so frequently changed.
Putting the shopping into the back of the wrong car every week.
Yeah. You can imagine it. Can't you?
Do you recall John's dad's Merc, Ben? Were you around for that?
No. We possibly would have known each other back then, but we didn't know each other that well.
No. Basically, Ben and I, like I said earlier, we had a mutual friend. So we probably used to cross paths now and again, didn't we, in like a pub or something?
Definitely in a pub.
Say hello. But then there was one day when I came home, and Ben was now a housemate. So we struck up quite a friendship, didn't we?
We did. We played snooker a lot.
Shared a frame of snooker, shared a pizza.
Yeah, and the odd curry.
Yeah, there's a few curries.
But we ended up living together for probably about a
couple
year.
Of years, wasn't it? Or a year or so, yeah.
A year or so. And then, we used to spend quite a lot of time driving around in your 5 Series Beamer.
Yeah, that's one of my regrets, selling that for not very much at all. But yeah, hey ho, these things happen, don't they?
That was a lovely car, to be fair.
It was a good one, yeah. I'd ploughed a lot of money into that car. It was an old car, but under the bonnet, everything was new. And I remember I had to get another car because I changed job and I was driving more miles, so I needed something that's economic. So I had to get a newer car, basically. And then I'd got that car and I ended up having the two cars at the same time. So I was in that position of, I just don't want that car on the drive anymore. So I remember selling it to some guy at the garage for like 600 quid or something, 650 quid.
Really?
I think at that time those cars had sort of bottomed out in price. And it's one of those cars as well. It was never really going to like rocket the price. It was just sort of, I guess they're probably steadily going up now, sort of creeping. But yeah, I think it's still out there though, still on the road. So never know.
Grab yourself a bargain.
I punch it into the old MOT checker now and again and just sort of keep an eye on it. Like looking up an old girlfriend on Facebook, probably, isn't it? Not that I do that because I'm happily married, but
cut that bit out.
Cut that bit.
So we've got an Escort estate. We've got a Rover. You don't know what came after that?
There was a Peugeot 405 or a spate of them.
Oh yeah, ropey Peugeots. Yeah,
they were just like the worst cars, weren't they? You know, I hated it. It was a really boxy, and if I remember, it was like a burgundy red, awful car, awful vehicle. And then I think we had a few of them over a period. And then that was it, really. And then my dad later on got a bit of a better job, bless him. And then he bought himself a really nice Mercedes C-Class estate, which he had for ages. You know, that was like seriously luxurious for us. A really nice car. And then he went on to 5 X-Trails after that.
Found what he liked. So what's he kicking around in now, an X-Trail?
No, he's got a Mercedes GLC, I think. Because he's, still in telecoms and he has to get on the side of the motorway and what have you. So it's like that's why he used to have the X-Trails, I think, because it was a bit of a sort of 4x4 type thing. But the GLC, he's had that for a few years. He loves that. I don't think he'll get rid of that until he has to, I don't think.
Is he a good driver?
Well, I don't go in the car with him very often anymore. But I always remember there would be a lot of, like John said earlier, a lot of swearing going on, a lot of shouting at other motorists for like now I think it's his driving, but perhaps when I was younger I thought it was everyone else. But he quite regularly tells me how many miles he does per day. So he will say to me, have you had a busy day at work? And, I've run a business, so it's every day is quite busy. But he would tell me how busy his day's been with how many miles he's driven. So quite often it's the standard 300-mile round trip that he's done.
Oh, okay.
So it's a running joke in our family that he's done 300 miles, so he's had a busy day.
You want to go and get a job doing like airport drops or something, Ben, and then next time he asks you how many miles you've done, you can just raise him. So 3 drops to Gatwick, Luton twice.
He'd hate that. He'd hate to be out mileaged. And I mean, He gets paid per mile. So, I mean, I don't know what he's moaning. He would be laughing.
It's his actual job.
Well, it's not his actual, not completely his job, but yeah, he would get mileage on that. So, I mean, 300 miles a day, he's probably earning all right.
So a bit of road rage almost, or just kind of just a bit of shouting.
Yeah, he would never get out. Yeah, he's definitely a shouting with the window up kind of guy, I reckon.
Locks down.
Yeah. If he listens to this, he might give me a slap. But yeah, no, there's quite a lot of shouting. There's I always remember a lot of shouting, and probably a lot of shouting at my mum back in the day because she would have been the one that got him lost, not him getting lost at all. But it would have been her fault, I reckon.
Of course not.
Horrible role, really, wasn't it, for the mother?
Yeah.
Back in the day, with like the dads being like that, sort of, I'm driving, you are the navigator. If we go wrong, it will be your fault.
And then 3 kids in the back, screaming and shouting at each other, and lots of hitting and, all that sort of stuff.
Kids can't see the front because of the smoke, though, at least, so just hear it all. It's like being one of those old limousines, isn't it? With the windows.
Mum's also in charge of the buffet, isn't she? So it's kind of out of that smoke would just be a hand with a jam sandwich. It just appear over the armrest in the middle, or just to pacify you. Just jam sandwich, bag of crisps, Kit Kat.
Yeah, just shut up.
Little Jaffa cake just poking through. Yeah.
Yeah. Roll me another cigarette.
But no drink, because then you'd need a wee.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not having your drink yet.
Well, it's funny. You talk about needing a wee. When we did drive down to Saint-Tropez, like I said earlier, there was no time for stopping at all because we were, my dad was in a race with my granddad that my granddad didn't know about. And so we did need a wee, me and my brother, and we were driving through Paris. And I remember that we were weeing in the bottles, and my mum was pouring it out of the windows as we were driving through Paris, through what's that really big roundabout? The famous roundabout in Paris. We were driving around that and pouring it out the windows.
The Arc de Triomphe, is it? Where they got
the Arc, isn't it? I think, yeah.
I think it might be. Isn't that like the supposed to be? I heard something. If you crash there, your insurance doesn't cover it. I don't know how true. That's like probably a real wives' tale, isn't it?
Isn't there like 10 lanes of traffic though, like at the roundabout or something like that? That also could be a wives' tale. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. This is absolute rubbish. Complete nonsense, this conversation. No truth at all in this.
People drive around in different directions. Yeah.
It's like going into Delhi.
Cars are on fire. Yeah.
You've got cattle going across.
There's French gendarmes picking people off with rifles at the...
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
That's why he bought a Peugeot, for immunity. He just gets straight through, under the radar.
Oh, that's amazing. To be honest, I don't remember my dad ever stopping for toilet breaks, no matter where we were going. Maybe he's doing like a Formula One job. He'd just go in the car. I don't know.
No, we didn't stop anywhere. We just had to keep going all the time.
Yeah. I guess there are less service stations back then, but I mean, a bush is a bush, isn't it? If you need to go to the toilet, you can hop out wherever. But I mean, we stop all the time. We're stopping like, we can hardly get off the drive and we need to stop. Someone's going to the toilet, or I don't know what was going on back then.
Yeah, our time was perhaps a little bit more precious, maybe. I don't know.
He's probably just desperate at getting his miles in, wasn't he, your dad?
Yeah, get his 300 miles in, yeah.
Right, I mean, that is a good little few cars that Phil's had there.
So your dad's called Phil. I was getting a little bit confused with Phil and Phil Collins earlier. So
yeah, sorry.
He's definitely not Phil Collins. Yeah.
Two very different men.
That was it was good fun. Thank you for joining us, Ben.
Thank you for having me.
Anything else we should ask you? Just with regards to parents' cars, grandparents' cars, cars of your youth.
Oh, you used to have a Nova, didn't you, Ben? Did you have a Vauxhall Nova?
Vauxhall Nova, yeah. F-Reg it was. Fantastic vehicle that was. I lost my rugby kit on the way to rugby one day.
I thought you were going to say something else then.
No, family show, I'm sure.
That was years earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it had so much rust. I got to the rugby club and I opened up the boot to get my kit out, and it disappeared on the way through the massive rust hole that was in the boot. Yeah. And then I went on to a Peugeot 206.
206, right, yeah. Not many of those left anymore, is there? I don't think they've all.
You've been picking them off one by one, John. One man crusade against Peugeots.
Yeah. Yeah.
John really hates the Peugeot.
Yeah, I don't hate Peugeots. Just no, I don't hate them. I don't hate any cars really, but I don't know. Most people seem to have problems with Peugeots. It seems.
I don't think I had many issues with it, from what I remember. I think I sold it to my sister in the end, and someone crashed into it, and that was the end of it.
Was it a man in a 5 Series?
Yeah.
Must have been the guy I sold it to.
Cool.
Good stuff.
Thank you very much for coming on and sharing your story with us, Ben, and thanks for the support. It's most appreciated.
No, absolutely. Anything I can do. Like I say, I've shared it to a few friends already, so
Fantastic.
hopefully you'll get a few people listening.
Definitely. Yeah. No, there's some good stories there. I think a lot of those will resonate as well with people that listen. Certainly some of them resonate with myself. Some of those dad habits.
Yeah, the smoking. The whole car full up with smoke, yeah.
Yeah.
Just mad to think. And I'd always think, when we went to go to school, we must have just stunk like we were smoking.
I think that's why I had no friends, really, because of the... That's what I blame it on.
We didn't have any cigarettes to give out. And they must have thought you were lying.
Yeah. What's your dad? Is your dad on cigars now? Your scent's changed.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Huh. You know, not just saying it. I really enjoyed the ones I listened to. Like, I was obviously it helps because I know John and I know his sense of humour. So certain things he was saying was just particularly making me laugh. But I just really enjoyed it. I sent it to my mate earlier, and he loves cars anyway, so he would probably benefit from it even more because he'll know what you're talking about. Whereas I don't particularly do know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It's quite nice for us, I think, to get someone on that's less into cars, if that makes sense. Because it's kind of the whole point of this is it doesn't have to be about cars. It's just like the subject, isn't it? And then just speak around it.
But you get different memories, don't you? You end up kind of talking more about maybe the music or kind of whatever.
Yeah.
So
no, I think it's good. Well, best of luck with it all, and I'll catch you later.
Yeah.
Speak soon. Cheers, mate. Bye.
Cool.
That was good. Yeah, another one done.
Bit of fun.
Always good for a story, Ben. And I can really imagine those scenes in France as well.
Especially his mum pouring bottles out the window.
I was going to say, yeah, I feel sorry for any bystanders on the the streets of Paris that night.
Yes. And his dad, kind of racing his granddad, then getting lost, so they end up having to get a hotel.
Yeah. It's quite a fascinating turn of events as well, going from a Ford Escort estate to a big old Rover.
Yes, they're quite a cool car, those.
Yeah.
It's an unusual choice. It wouldn't be your most obvious decision to go Ford Escort estate into the SD1, but
not at all. You've sort of gone from quite safe to pretty risky, I would say.
Yeah, I guess we don't know the full circumstance, do we? Whether it was a family friend was getting rid of it, or the Escort burst into flames and they just needed something with wheels and an engine. But,
lost a bet or something like that.
Yeah, whatever it is. Yeah.
It
was just abandoned on their doorstep in a basket.
Keys for the letterbox.
So, another episode. That was episode 7.
Wow.
We're chalking them up.
Good stuff.
Let's wrap it up, and
thanks very much for listening.
See you again soon. Yeah, roll some credit. Thanks for tuning into My Dad's Car. We're new at this and really appreciate you listening and supporting the podcast. If you enjoyed it, please click subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Give us a follow on social media and tell your friends to tune in too if you think it will be up their street.